So a guy walks into the library, he goes up to the circulation desk, and he says, "I'd like a hamburger, french fries, and a large chocolate shake." And the librarian says, "Sir, you're mistaken, this is a library." And he says, "Oh, sorry. I'd like a hamburger, french fries, and a large chocolate shake." What does that have to do with IBM? Nothing at all. So I'm going to talk from the manager point of view, and here's the ideal. Set a clear goal, give the team the right resources, watch them soar. So for all of you managers out there, that's what we strive for. For all of you who have managers, which is everyone here, yeah, right. That's what we aim for, that's what we're trying to do. Sometimes there are lots of obstacles, they don't have the right resources, don't have the right clear objective, but this is what we're trying to do. So I hold that up as our objective. So let me just tell you a few things about the team. I feel like I've told this, I've spoken to almost everyone in the audience, so it all looks like familiar faces by this time, which is great. So global team, I've got a team in the United States, also in Slovakia. We have a sister team in Sydney, Australia. The way we divide up the world is the Sydney team covers Asia Pacific, Latin America. I've got North America and Europe. But we're very collaborative. For example, there was an Australian digital marketing team that has some very, very sophisticated business needs. Sydney couldn't help them, so we're working on that for them. We're also virtual. I've talked to some people and they say, well, where is your team? Well, everywhere. And so it doesn't matter anymore exactly where. We're certainly not co-located. I've got 3 people with me in Raleigh, but people in Atlanta, New York, Detroit, Denver, and as I say, in Eastern Europe. But we do have a centralized model. So we have a core group of about 20 analysts that work for about 25 internal clients throughout IBM. So we've moved to this centralized service because we have, for the analyst point of view, I think it's a lot of fun for them because they have teammates. Our folks in Slovakia sit across the table from each other. They share ideas, they share tips, tricks, they help each other. And certainly when I bring in somebody new, they can be brought up to speed much more quickly. So that's great from the analyst point of view. We hope from our internal client's point of view, someone like Leslie, that she has one place to go and say, here's what I need, and can you take care of me? So we are a paid service internally. So Leslie, my dear client, and by the way, I've only met her yesterday for the first time, even though we've worked together for years. Yeah, this is the virtual part of it. So each team does have to have that budget. The good part of that is then we work out clear scope, we hope, and that just is the way IBM chooses to manage that. And so then who do we serve? Hardware, software, services, general business, whatever is the group within IBM that requires some analytics help. Let me talk about how we operate. Let me start with the people. I really enjoyed the Dell presentation this morning, took a lot of notes because very similar challenges, I think. And sure, people is fundamental, and I've got a very talented team. I've got senior analysts with many years' experience, people who've spoken at this conference for Jim and who've attended the conference, people with many years' experience. And then I've got more junior people who are just really great with numbers, very eager to learn. And the way we work is we put them together. So in many cases, we have a senior person, a junior person focused on one area of the business. For example, with the hardware division, I've got 4 people, all focused on that because Systems Technology Group has a very large website, many web strategists, many different things they want to measure. So we've got 4 people focused on that. And the senior strategist might be more, the web analyst would be developing the strategy, managing the client relations, and the more junior people are pulling the data, running the reports, and together they produce the deliverable for the client. When it comes to communication, of course, that's fundamental. And when we're so scattered, we're really used to all the time zones, the different accents. That's just part of life at IBM. We try to figure out which the right medium. Should it be a phone call? Should it be email, instant messaging? Or we've really been having a lot of fun with web cameras the past year, where we've got this third-party technology called VSEE, where we can have like the Brady Bunch, several of us all together where we can see each other. And that really facilitates communication. Just a few words about process. That's something we're looking at more and more is how can we be more efficient? As we've grown, We've grown quite a bit, doubled the size of the team in the past couple of years. How can we be more efficient? What one person's doing is not completely different from what the other person. There must be some similarities, so can we have templates? So we have an effort called reusable assets, where we do try to say, for this kind of scorecard, let's all just agree. And here's the template, now you can just go customize it for your particular client. But it saves people time that way. And then finally on the tools. So we were transitioning to Core Metrics last year, and I've seen some Core Metrics friends at this conference, which has been great. And then we moved to Unica January 1st, flipped the switch, moved to Unica Net Insight, which has been great, very interesting implementation. And then we bought Core Metrics, which kind of blew our mind when we came to work. Okay, what's that about? What does that mean to us? And then we bought Unica. So I guess we're staying on that course. It's been really a very exciting time to be at IBM, to be part of a company that can do that. And so it's interesting to see this huge focus on analytics at IBM as a corporation. I just want to put out 3 of the challenges of what we're trying to balance. I don't have the answers to these. The answer is, yes, you have to do both. But let me just mention these. We have, on the one hand, you want to be efficient, and you want to be consistent, because all these execs always want this global roll-up. They want to put apples, oranges, and kumquats together and say, oh, we're doing better. So you want to do that on the one hand, but then we have every client, like a Wellesley or a STG client or our software group client or our global business services client. They all have unique needs. And the business questions keep changing. So that's something we're always working on. How do we balance those two? I said I'm an internal service. So of course I'm trying to acquire new clients, and I feel a duty to respond. I've gotten 8 requests, 8 new clients in the past 2 months, which has been crazy to try to staff and balance with the team. Everybody wants to know how their website is doing. But then I've got a team that already is already full to capacity, so how do I balance that? And then of course the team wants to keep current. They do things like coming to conferences, webinars, reading blogs, reading books, taking classes. But then they got to get today's work done. There's that executive deliverable that's due, and that's just some of the challenges that we're dealing with. So that's a few thoughts from the management point of view. I'm going to turn it over now to Christine, who will talk from the analyst point of view.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay? If it's not up and down, that well, no. Okay, great. Thanks. I represent a member of the web analytics community within IBM. And IBM is such a large organization. You know, we have 3 major pillars: hardware, software, and services. And each one of those groups has different business needs and different business questions. And what we as analysts do is try our best through our analytics to answer those business questions. The bottom line for each of our clients, each of our customers is, please demonstrate the value of the web, and that's what we aim to do. What I'm going to show you is I'm going to cover software group, and specifically software group marketing, because that's the client that I support. And the way that we organized our metrics is to align with the software group marketing funnel. So we look at a series of KPIs to really, again, align and support with the funnel. So we first start with the awareness level. And you'll see a bunch of bubbles on top. Those are all of our drive to web activities. And that's what they represent. Then we pull out what are the KPIs in the funnel that are important to us. And for us, we actually use the KPIs of visitors and visits to really measure the traffic coming to the site. Then beneath that, we actually look at the engagement. And the way that we measure engagement is we look at the registrants and the registrations coming to our site. And that is our specific measure of engagement. Then we look at the opportunity. We use the KPI of leads to really define what that opportunity is. And then the last thing is the sale or the win. So those are basically our major KPIs that go according to the funnel. And then the other thing that's important to us, because they tell us what's going on with the various levels, are the conversions. So we look at the conversions of traffic or from awareness to engagement, because then that tells us, or that reflects on how well we're doing bringing people to the site. Not only bringing them there, is to keeping them there and having us actually engage with us by actually filling out some contact information, say, yes, IBM, we want to have a relationship with you. And then we also look at the conversion from the engagements to the leads, because then we say, okay, now we've got serious business prospects. What have we done to nurture the relationship? What is the effectiveness of our nurturing? And that gives us an indicator, that conversion. The last conversion we also look at is the conversion of the leads to the sale or the leads to the wins, because then that tells us how effective are we at actually closing the deal. So those are our KPIs, and these are things that we measure on a regular basis. Now, I talked a little bit about the conversions, but all of these KPIs are important. They really answer some of the business questions as to exactly what's going on. Again, starting from the top of the funnel, awareness, that's telling us how effective our site is. Are we effective in search optimization, both on paid and organic? How are we doing in the social media space? Is there a buzz? I'm sorry, I did forward. How do I go back?
Try the right one.
There we go. It works.
This time.
This time, okay, thank you. We were talking about social media. We're measuring how well we are doing in that social media space. Are people talking about us, and is the speak positive? So we look at that again. On the engagement level, that gives us an idea is how compelling is our content? How effective is our merchandising? How valuable and how easy is our registration process? Are people coming there and actually registering? Is it easy? Is it cumbersome? So those are all indicators of that space. Then again, we look at the needs. You know, are we effectively nurturing that relationship? And again, how effective is our follow-through? And that's the sale piece of the funnel. So you see, I've got my little health monitor there, because we are monitoring this thing on a regular basis. And because of the scale and the complexity of IBM, and specifically in Software Group, we perform rankings all the time. So we've got several brands that make up Software Group, and we actually rank them by all of these key indicators. We rank them so that they know where they are, as well as how they know where their competitors, internal competitors are. We do this also by geography, because as you know, it is a worldwide company. So we get a look at all of the regions and we compare them. And we flush out those areas that are doing really well on the brand side and on the regional side, on the regional side, because we want to share best practices. We also are able to identify performance gaps from areas that are doing poorly in any of the segments or the geographies, because that way we know exactly where the problems are, and then we can put attention to them and get them the support they need. The other things that we look at that are not really specifically called out here, but I wanted to call it out on the chart, was aging. Because we're doing business on the web, it's also important to us that when a transaction happens on the web, it's just not sitting around for a long period of time. So we look at aging reports to make sure that all of the leads are progressing as expected. And again, if that's not happening, we need to zoom in and figure out what's going on. Something needs to be addressed. Speaking again, because we are talking about the web, we're also looking at the yields. How many of those leads that are actually starting on the web are actually delivering with a closure, with a sale? So that's important for us as well. In summary, I just wanted to kind of share with you, basically how we manage the whole process and how we can give that value add to our customer to tell them about the web marketing. So first of all, what we have to do is we have to start with the objectives, working with the client or working with the customer, understanding what their business objectives are. Together, working based on their objectives, what are the relevant KPIs for their objectives? How can they measure their business? What are the right things for us to look at? Along with that, equally important is we need to set goals. And I didn't hear a lot about that, but I want to make sure that we reinforce that. It's very important. It's great to have a set of KPIs, but you need to measure against something. And in some cases, it may be looking at historical data. It may be industry benchmarks. It may be growth objectives, and that's typically what we do because we've got in history. So we said we need to grow X% in these KPIs, and that would be our target. And we consistently and regularly measure against those goals. The other thing is to make sure you measure at regular intervals. Now, measuring at regular intervals, I think, is one of our biggest challenges. And I think what we have to do is find a balance between the information we want, and the effort required to get that information. And that's kind of one of the challenges of the analyst. What is the right level of frequency? So you just have to balance both of those to figure out what's right for your business. Another very important thing in our process is really highlighting the areas of challenge. I think I spoke about that a little bit earlier. The reason that we rank is because we want to see where there are problems, and the reason we measure regularly is because we want to see if something goes off course, because again, it's important that we get support for those areas. But we also want to call out areas of success. So one of our regular features when we publish our scorecard is to have best practices and success stories, because one group may be doing very well and we want to share that information and share that lessons with everyone so that they can build themselves up. Understanding the network of influencers, I think this is very key because those are the people that can affect change. Now, we were looking at my funnel a little while ago, and I know who are the people that can affect change along that funnel to make sure that things move in the positive direction. And I know within IBM, those are our brand marketing teams, and I know that there are our geography teams. They control what happens on that funnel. So I want to make sure that they regularly know exactly what's going on in their business, because they ask me, I can tell them, they can make some tweaks to their business to make sure that that gets fixed, and if there's something that's going wrong, they can make an adjustment to improve those results. The last thing I want to say is really about just kind of reinforcing sharing the results. It's important to have a regular communication with these teams. We gain insights from each other. I can show them what I'm finding with my data, but they actually know what's going on the ground in the business. So we share insights with one another, and together we formulate actions, and we typically have 30, 60, 90-day plans, again, to address areas where we're having problems. So that is pretty much the role of the web analyst at IBM, again, specifically at Software Group Marketing. I'm going to turn it over to Leslie Reeser to talk about it from the client perspective.
Thanks, Christine. Okay, so two friends walk into a joke teller convention. Let's call them Sam and Harry. And because this is a joke teller convention, everybody in the audience already knows the jokes because they're all joke tellers. So instead of actually going through and reciting a long, kind of laborious joke, they yell out the numbers. So the first comic gets up and he goes, 172. And there is uproarious applause and stamping of the feet, and people are jumping out of their seats. And then the next guy goes up and he says, 75. And again, the same response. But then the third guy goes up and he says, number 43. And Harry pokes Sam and he says, there's no reaction. He says, some guys just don't know how to tell a joke. So why do I tell you that? Well, I did want to make you laugh, just like Margaret. But there's a reason here. What was the difference? What was the subtleties? Was it the delivery? Was it the expression? Was it the inflection in their voice that made the difference? In a comics world, it could be any of those factors. In my world, it's being able to effectively measure and demonstrate contribution back to the business. And I don't know, I'm sure there's marketers in the room in addition to analytic professionals, but if you're at all like me, as a program owner, on almost a daily basis, you have to justify your existence. And I have to do it in a way that's meaningful, that's consumable to the senior leaders in my company that make those decisions on whether or not my program gets funded, whether it's quarterly or year to year or for a longer time span. And so it's very critical that I have metrics that I derive from my engagement with Margaret's competency, her worldwide competency, and an analyst like Christine that perform very, very significant roles in arming marketers with the necessary information to make those decisions. And so even before I launch something, I determine, can I measure it? And I work with our analytics team to ensure that I have those metrics in place. That's really a critical factor. That, whether I can do it or not, I may tweak my program a little bit before I execute. Then when I execute, I make sure that I can get measurements, that they're consistent, that I get them on a regular basis, that I get the analysis, that I can make those decisions, and again, the cycle repeats. So I didn't even tell you who I was or what I do, and Jim alluded to a little bit, aside from the title, which is really meaningless. I essentially manage a worldwide team of marketing and strategy and technology professionals who build websites, who enhance those websites, and run associated programs and build social media marketing platforms, as well as programs that support that as well. Our goal is to influence future purchase consideration of IBM's products and services and solutions around the globe to either SMB, small and mid-sized customers, and we define mid-size as 100 to 1,000 customers, and to business partners. We provide enablement and education to business partners because they are, after all, our sell-through channel in that marketplace. Our program is unique, and I actually, in addition to the websites, we have about, I think it's 60 now, SMB customer-facing websites in different countries that are all localized in those countries around the world. We've got 20 business partner education and enablement communities around the world localized, and 10 InfoBoom social marketing communities, which is a little bit different, our kind of entree into the social web. And I'm using this as kind of an example today to just basically share with you how I leverage the metrics and why it is so important. But InfoBoom started about a year ago, and we've made several iterations since. It essentially is an online community to stimulate dialogue and discussion on top-of-mind items that challenge mid-sized businesses on a daily basis. And they could range anything from cloud computing or service-oriented architecture, or how to implement a green IT solution in your environment, or how do I ensure my dynamic infrastructure is proving its value to me. It provides access to subject matter experts, whether those are IBMers or industry experts or analysts, authors, business partners. It's comprised of an ecosystem that lives both on an online destination hub as well as through standard and commonly accessed outlets like LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter, or in France, the audio, and in China, Sinoblog. And China is a unique market in and of itself because of all the censorship and regulatory issues that we have to deal with over there. And essentially, it is designed as a forum to provide a safe haven for customers who are looking for like-minded expertise from peers so that they can benefit from others' expertise and hopefully not make the same mistakes that others have done before them in similar types of business challenges. So this is actually a real-life example that I challenge my analysts with. And I get, pretty much in any given week, are you sure we have the right topics? Are you sure that the content is resonating? Are we sure we're meeting the real unique business issues that are facing the SMB marketplace around the globe? Does it differ country by country? As an example, in the US, we have healthcare issues that might differ from those issues in India or in Singapore and the other countries that we operate in. So I went to my metrics analyst and I said, I need to really have some information. I need to know that our content is resonating. Come up, help me with a particular KPI that would really be an indicator, something that you could, on a weekly basis report back to me on. And so how they do their magic, I don't know. Christine can better answer that question, but they came up with a way to derive what the conversation threads are through listening, through measuring different kinds of interaction with the content, with the topics. And ultimately, I got a share of conversation report, which I do produce on a regular basis. And in this particular thing, out of the 8 or 9 topics that we surface on a daily basis, social media for business leaders in this time period ranked highest. It ranked 59%. And so it gave me that data point that I really needed again to continually validate that we were on the right track with this program. This is just a sample of a dashboard. I know it's a little hard to see, but kind of envision this much longer. We basically provide information on these 6 categories, and there are KPIs, very, very specific KPIs that are behind this. So there's engagement and influence and persuasion and sentiment and community reach, visitor loyalty, and referrals from the social web. And this is a departure, the whole measuring of the social space. You know, it's a little bit more straightforward to measure web, but it's a lot harder to measure impact of social media marketing programs and to justify the ROI and demonstrate that contribution back to the business. And so finally, I also want to leave you with kind of a few takeaways. Ensure that you embed metrics and analysis into your program development at the get-go. I have found this to be critical in everything I do, and where I fail to do that, I have made mistakes along the way. Metrics need to be aligned to the business priorities and to demonstrate the value in business terms that your senior management can understand. And make sure you get agreement first on what constitutes success, because while traffic or visitation may be a great indicator to you, often that is not translatable into business terminology that someone else can understand. Establish a regular cadence. I hate to say that I'm almost on a daily basis getting metrics, but typically we work on a weekly report cadence for some reports and bi-weekly for the others, and then we roll up everything in aggregate on a quarterly basis, you know, around the world. And then just constantly use that information to refine your program. If there is anyone in the audience who is interested in finding out what InfoBoom is, please do join the conversation at theinfoboom.com or anywhere on IBM at ibm.com.
Excellent. Thank you,
Okey-doke.
ladies.